Hello. I've never tried Kentucky Fried Chicken, so I don't know what it tastes like. I'll never crave it. And I'll probably never try it because I'm afraid I'll like it, so.
Kentucky Fried Chicken. KFC, you guys asked for it, you're getting it. First time ever. We just gotta find one. This is hilarious right now. So we just searched for the nearest KFC near where we were. And we come to this one, okay, now open till 10:30. One thing I've never had, Kentucky Fried Chicken and Taco Bell, and there's a Taco Bell like right next door. Angie told me there's a special plate or something where you get the mashed potatoes, right? How many pieces of chicken? I don't even know what you get here. So I'm not gonna eat a big tub of chicken. I'm not gonna do Lee Priest, you know? Literally a week out from the show and eat a whole bucket of chicken. The big bucket, he'd eat that, what is it? 16 piece maybe? So first time Kentucky Fried Chicken ever, so 50 years. I haven't tried Kentucky Fried Chicken in 50 years. But you know, I'm like, to be honest, last time I had Chick-fil-A, that fried, it kind of messed up my stomach a little bit. I'm gonna try the chicken tenders and I need to try the mashed potatoes. Social media thing, so everyone's like, you have to try Kentucky Fried Chicken. So I'm gonna try tenders and I'm gonna try he's gonna do the sandwich, so we're gonna kind of get a little feel of everything. But I heard the mashed potatoes are really good, so.
Yeah, the mashed potatoes and gravy.
I don't know if I'm gonna get gravy though. Should I get gravy?
No, you gotta get gravy.
You
Really?
got, you gotta do the mashed potatoes and gravy. I dipped the nuggets in the
Okay,
mashed
I'll
potatoes
try
and
it.
gravy.
I'll try it.
KFC's been around for a little.
Well, I mean, I'm 50 years old, so.
It's like, I'm 69 and
Yeah. What do you think they're most known for?
the chicken.
Well, like what?
The
exactly?
11 herbs and
Okay.
spices chicken. It's different than any other chicken.
Wow.
Piece tender. What kind of sauce should I get? What's the best one? What's the KFC sauce?
KFC sauce is like a little worse than the king sauce, but it's still pretty good.
Which one's the best one?
I never do sauces.
Okay, well, all right. Well, whatever. Whatever you think the best one
Let me
is.
try.
And then we're gonna get some nuggets.
You said 3-piece tender, right?
Yeah, 3-piece tender,
What would you like for your side?
mashed potatoes. I've had fried chicken, but not
Okay,
Kentucky
okay.
Fried Chicken.
Okay, you haven't had that. Have you ever had ribs?
No, I've never had ribs.
You never had ribs?
No.
Okay, now if you, the best ribs are when they're so tender that they fall off the bone.
But does that happen in Las Vegas, or does it happen more in different places?
Well, no, you can have ribs. I
Anywhere.
don't care what. But if you ever have ribs, the one that kind of
They
like
fall off the bone. That's the best one.
That's what Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Okay, for the actual chicken.
As far as the chicken, because it's so tender.
Okay.
Whatever herbs and spices that they use, it kind of falls off the bone.
How many times a week do you have Kentucky Fried Chicken?
I don't eat as much as I used to. At first, before they had Popeyes and,
Yeah.
and churches and everything, I used to have it actually probably at least once a week. But
And I never had Taco Bell either, so that's what I'm gonna try next.
You know what?
I know it's right next door. All right, we're gonna see what this food's all about right here. They gave us a lot of sauces, guys.
Not the KFC.
I didn't lose anything, don't worry. The bag ripped. Too much shit in there. What is this right here? What are you supposed to do? These are the tenders, huh? You supposed to dip them in something, Tyler? Or?
I would, personally, you gotta dip them in the mashed potato side.
Am I blown away? So now I can't say in my speeches, I've never had Kentucky Fried Chicken. It's okay. It's not great. I'm not overly impressed. No. We got nuggets too, right? The nuggets I think are better than the
chicken strips.
than the tenders.
Those are the new nuggets. They had popcorn chicken before.
This is pretty good actually. Yeah, the mashed potatoes are pretty
bad for you.
Artificial.
Yeah. The iced tea's pretty good though. 4 out of 10. If there's a burger place I need to go in Vegas, someone needs to let me know. Or if there's one for me to try in a different place when I travel, I want to go to like a place that's known, that's not a chain. Like someone that said, hey, this is the best burger we've ever had. There's some burger that Brian Shaw did that was like 3 or 4 pounds, I think, or something. What is that, cheese?
I don't know. I just ordered it straight.
Pretty spicy.
Is it the KFC sauce?
Pretty spicy sauce. That guy talked to like this place was like the next coming.
Different than any other chicken.
All right, guys. So you witnessed history right here. So I tried Kentucky Fried Chicken for the first time. I get about 4 out of 10. I don't think I'll be coming back. We've been doing these late workouts right now, but today is everyone's favorite day. It's arm day.
Do one field set. We'll go about 70 pounds. That was good. That was 12. All right, one more set here. We're trying to do our 60 seconds between. 60 seconds is our rest time. And we're gonna knock out 12 right now. This is gonna be tough, so. All right, question is, guys, when you do this movement, try to keep your elbows not too far out, right? So try to keep the elbows so you can really get that stretch, okay? You guys that are putting the elbows out way too wide, you're getting less of a contraction. Okay, that was 12. We're gonna move on to the next. I don't know how many it was, 12, I think.
What's your opinion on training to failure?
I was always a volume trainer, so training to failure really wasn't ideal for me. It's either volume or train for failure, one or the other, not a combination of both in my opinion. So a lot of sets, a lot of reps, whereas training to failure, less reps, heavier, a little more rest period, and just never really been my thing. We're gonna start with biceps, okay? Start with the Atlantis seated 2-arm curl. Okay. How many was that?
I wasn't counting.
Who
Are you
counted?
counting? I
I
was.
didn't count, I was reading
Did
comments.
a live stream? Huh? Was it 17?
You got 15, 16, 17, 16.
You guys can't count either? What's up with that? How come you guys can't count?
How do you keep your elbows from getting fatigued?
I don't know if my elbows are fatigued, but I mean, look, I'm in the lock position with this. I talked about that lock position, that isolation. Isolation is really important for biceps. I feel that someone like me who swings a lot, you guys are gonna witness that soon. I think I need some fixed position when I do my arm training. So, good pump already. Okay, so workout's been good. Okay, so I'm not coming all the way up, guys, and taking the tension off. I'm keeping constant tension. Okay?
There's probably been over 1,000 comments asking your thoughts on Sam Solik.
Unbelievable. great the content he's doing. I'd like to get a workout in with him, see if he can hang. Tell Sam that he needs to get a workout with me at the Arnold Classic. We'll be there together. He did some sort of video on me or something, didn't he? Watching my...
You were doing a cameo in this same gym, and you were like, go talk to some girls, and he just like pumped out a bunch of squats.
Really?
Yeah, I'll send it to you. It's hilarious.
Well, I can teach him how to talk to some girls. A few years experience on that, Sam. One more set. Never slam the weights. The first one on the planet to use these in 2008. Okay, so grip strength, different muscle fibers. That's what we're aiming for with this, okay? This is not an ad. This is not a sales pitch, okay? We try to do explosive reps. So 60 seconds. So I don't use fat grips every single workout, and I don't even do barbell curls every single workout. Now, we go between straight bars, cambered bars. We can do spider curls with a bar, with dumbbells. So particularly I want to do, since I did a machine, I'm gonna do a barbell. My next movement's gonna be probably a dumbbell. That's what I'm already starting to think about. But we're gonna do 3 sets here. I'm gonna stay with a little lower weight. This definitely hurts your ego a little bit because it definitely makes it heavier as the bar is much wider, okay?
Yo, Big Bean Burrito. What up?
All right, so guys, listen.
Bowser Big Bean Burrito. What's
You'll notice
going on? The
my
kiss.
form is not perfect, okay? We have a joke out there, they call me the form king. I always trained sloppy, okay? Meaning this body movement, okay? I do feel the stimulation of the biceps. No matter what you guys think, I don't put my back
Welcome,
against
Bowser
the wall
Big
and do strict
Bean
curls.
Burrito.
That's not what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to get through the repetitions. Sometimes the weight gets heavy, and sometimes I swing more, sometimes I swing less. But trust me, I'm feeling every single rep
Am I not following you? I must be following you.
in control,
I
okay?
am following you then.
Constant tension. That is the key. Constant tension,
Have you been here before?
continuous pump, muscle fibers, blood flow, stimulation. Get out of the gym, feed it, okay? At the peak, my arms were 22 and a half. Today, they measure about 19 inches, okay? Do plan to drop actually more weight, so.
Dude, AI is so friggin' witty. AI is witty. It's so witty.
How we talk about failure, that could
Person
be
of the
close.
year, I'm calling it. 2024 Person of the Year is AI, honestly. It's already made me laugh and cry. Provided more memories.
Spider curl, guys. That got a little heavy. What I like about this exercise, this is strictly biceps, okay? I have a tendency to go a little faster than I probably should. But the arms hang down, the contractions there. Takes the shoulders, takes the back out of it. We're leaning here, the chest is high. I'm aiming for 12. I'm starting to get fatigued a little bit, so. Okay, look at the foot position, guys. Okay, balance. Little hold there.
I love AI. Like, how?
That was 13.
Why would it decide that Vegeta would
So 13.
be a max out
Now they're
guy?
asking what your thoughts are
Each
on the
set,
trend plays.
insane.
They're
I'm
great
adding that.
boys.
Holy fuck.
I need to work out with them too.
That's such a good quote.
Yeah. Actually, I just took some with the fundamentals before I train.
I gotta
Take a little bit after, blood flow.
This is so fucking good.
Creatine is the ultimate, okay? Everyone on TikTok should be using it. All right, so 12 reps. 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, so I count in sixes, so 6 more. I appreciate you guys pushing me along today for this workout here. It's kind of a lot different. You know, people have their training during the weekdays. Very few people train on Saturday evenings, but you guys know I love it that much.
No mercy for you, no worries for you. That Game of Thrones, go Cersei on you. I flipped the script, I roll the dice. Don't fall asleep, cause I'm working nights. Hey.
There is something here.
Oh my God. The engineer is just like, you know what this wall needs right here?
And there's a matching face, a complex curve of the block
A twist.
next to
It's
it.
almost like the
It's
face has a
twisted.
twist in it.
You see all the same marks, scoops, right?
It's the same.
But I love this, the idea of the story is like, this is your trench, Johnson. Take your pounding stone. This is where you work.
Yeah.
And so each guy just sits here for his entire life.
Entire life.
And digs. So I've drawn a line down the corner, and you'll notice that giant block goes around the corner.
Oh my God.
It's like
Yeah.
you're showing off.
Then you go in with your magic granite flattening tool, whatever that is, and you remove all that granite. Now you have 4 blocks that go around corners.
I think part of our thing is like we have no idea.
Snake Bros. Wait, how do you guys do your intro? Ladies and gentlemen, brothers
yeah.
and serpents, angels and demons.
That's right.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, angels and demons and monsters and serpents. This is Brothers of the Serpent. We are on the Danny Jones podcast.
This has been a long time coming, fellas.
Yes.
I'm psyched to have you guys in here today.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
So,
really glad.
yeah, and thank you for helping me solve my audio issues just now. We just spent the last 30 minutes talking
Yep.
about audio problems.
Kyle is a wizard.
I love the studio.
Thank you.
This is great.
Thank you, man.
I'm jealous of your wall back there. I want one of those.
The foam blocks?
Yeah.
I got some extras I can give you guys.
But fly home with this giant bag.
So, I need you guys to tell me what you guys know. I know you guys have the secrets.
Well, let's see. Should we start with where we come from on this stuff?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, how did you guys start your podcast? Tell me the whole origin of the Snake Bros.
Okay. So, the beginning of the investigation into this kind of mystery happened because we actually got into an accident. When was it? Is it 2002?
Yeah. One
It
or
was a
two.
long
I think
time
it was
ago.
2002.
Yeah. So basically, it was a really, really bad car accident. Before that, we were just we were rocking and rolling, we were playing music. We were actually the car accident happened because we were coming back from a band practice late at night, and but this guy was drunk and he just came over onto our side of the road, and we had a head-on collision at 60 miles an hour. So it was really bad. It broke my back, did a whole bunch of other damage to me. The car's burned to the ground. Bullets were flying everywhere because we were in Texas and we had ammo in the car.
Lots of ammo.
Yeah, the cops and the fire trucks, they all had to leave, and everybody had to hit the deck because it's like bullets are flying.
Because the car was on fire?
Yeah, the car started burning, and then the ammo started going off. And
holy shit!
Yeah,
we had all of our guitars and amps in there too, and they burned.
Yep,
it was terrible.
Yeah. So then I spent a long time in the hospital in recovery. And it was one of those deals where they're like, well, you may never walk again, all this kind of stuff, because my spine had basically exploded, my lower back. The L3 vertebrae was a burst fracture into 27 pieces. And Kyle had a bunch of damage too. He was driving, I was in the front passenger seat. So the seat belt cut me from, my upper right shoulder all the way down to my hip like I had got cut with a sword. So broke my clavicle, ribs, all the way down. So I was really damaged. And then I was in recovery for a long time, hobbling with a cane, couldn't really go anywhere, couldn't really do anything. And after I had read every fiction book I had again and played every video game I had again, I started I was like, I just want to, I want to read some interesting, mysterious stuff. And I started going online and just looking up, let's check out the pyramids. Let's look at ancient civilizations. I know there's mysteries involved in this. And then I started to understand, holy crap, there is a lot of fascinating stuff that I've never really been aware of just in this stuff. Just the first time I saw the interior diagram of the Great Pyramid, and you understand that most of this huge stone triangle doesn't seem to have anything in it. There's just these passageways and these little rooms, and you're like, they built this entire thing and that's all that's inside there? Maybe there's other stuff, So I started getting interested in that. I started looking at out-of-place artifacts, just objects that people have claimed to have found or have been found in places where they shouldn't be. Something that might imply transatlantic trade a long time ago. Some people have, coins, very ancient coins in the Americas. So it would be in a time where supposedly nobody was making coins or even using metal, right? Just stuff like that. And then, Kyle and I are hanging out, and I'd start going to him and telling him, dude, have you seen this inside of the pyramid? Have you looked at this?
So Kyle, what happened to you during that accident? How fucked up did you get?
It was mostly whiplash.
Okay.
But I was suffering from a lot of pain, and I was going to all these doctors, had MRIs done, did physical therapy, and I'm trying to, they were trying to figure out why am I in so much pain.
Did your spine explode too?
No broken bones.
Wow.
Yeah.
Were you wearing a seatbelt or no?
Yeah.
You were. But you didn't have the seatbelt cut like your brother?
No, well, see, what happened to him is one of the big amplifiers in the back flew up and hit his seat.
Oh.
And it just shoved the whole seat forward.
Yeah, so he had hit
against the seatbelt?
Yeah, he hit the brakes, and that your seatbelt locks. So I'm sitting back with the seatbelt locks, and then this giant speaker stack hits the back of my seat and jams it forward, and the seatbelt was locked. So it just cut me,
Yeah. But
yeah,
basically, it's we're still dealing with all that.
Yep.
It's
how long did it take you guys to get back on your feet and start moving around normally?
For me, it was literally a week, and then I was back at work, and we were working on land development, so it's hard labor outdoors.
But he had long-term tissue damage that no one was really aware of.
That's what I'm saying. Within a month, I couldn't hardly move.
Yeah. So you know how whiplash will affect you? You'll be like, I'm fine.
Yeah.
And then 2 or 3 days later, you're like, oh my God, I can't sit up. Yeah. So one of the things that we found out later with him is he had his right foot slammed on the brake when the impact happened, and that jolt went up his leg, hyperextended his knee, hit his hips, and twisted it, and that entire twisting motion went all the way up his spine and into his neck, and did tissue damage all the way up. It takes a long time to manifest.
It's basically they call it arthritis, because when you get a severe injury to the spine or to your bones, like just not severe injury so much as like just something real hard on it. Like bull riders get this. They get like an early onset arthritis called traumatic arthritis. That's what I got in the spine.
Right.
But it was almost instantaneous. It begins from that moment. So.
Yeah, but I remember, once I was
still climb through a pyramid though.
Yeah,
Still climb through a pyramid.
it hurts a little more than it should, but we can still do it. Yeah, I mean, we went, eventually we were going snowboarding again. Eventually,
Right.
yeah, which is it's everything is harder.
Yeah.
Right. You're not nearly
don't take as big a chances as before, which is kind of good.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like maybe I shouldn't jump off this
Yeah,
cliff.
I probably shouldn't try that jump on my snowboard anymore.
And then you guys get rear-ended on the way to the podcast.
Yeah, that was awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. I was. This is the thing. I'm holding my phone like this. We were looking for a restaurant, and we get rear-ended. It just flies out of my hand and just hits me in the face.
Yeah.
Like, dude, okay.
Yeah.
Even a passenger, you shouldn't be holding your phone in your face.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that that person that was behind you was probably a plant following you, CIA plant, because we got to show everybody. My father-in-law was driving down the beach this morning, right 5 minutes away from here, and he sends me photos of Mobile Tactical Operations Center for the U.S. Space Force.
It looks like the Star Trek emblem.
Yeah. Mobile Tactical Operations Center for U.S. Space Force.
Space Force is here, bro.
It looks like a nice van. Like, I wonder if somebody just bought that van and just did that to fuck with people, or if that's for real.
It could be. I mean,
I mean, that's pretty. If you were Space Force, though, why would you want to be so blatantly out in the open like that, just on the beach? I don't know. Maybe
they're proud of being Space
Maybe
Force.
they have nothing to hide.
Yeah.
They're fucking installing the rods from God, man. So you guys you started reading books, started getting into all the science fiction stuff.
Yeah.
And then at what point did you guys come up with the idea to start a podcast?
Well, after years of us sort of we had long, we're brothers, so we would have these long conversations. I'd go down to his house and hang out, or we're just hanging out with friends and drinking some beers, and we would just have these long, involved conversations. And we started to develop a kind of sort of an alternate or possible alternate ways of looking at this stuff, and then we would just have these amazing conversations about it. And I was like, and then I started getting into podcasts as well. I was listening to them, and I started telling Kyle, I'm like, dude, we could do this. Like these guys, there's all these different podcasts that are discussing this kind of stuff. Yeah. I think we have something to add to the conversation, and I want to be part of this conversation. I want to talk to these people as well.
Yeah.
And then the other great thing about having a podcast is you can kind of be just a random person, but you can invite scientists and doctors and experts and and thinkers onto your show to talk to you, and they'll come and do it, right? Whereas if you're just like, well, I don't have any, can I just call you scientist and talk to you about some science stuff? And they're like, I'm busy. But if you have a show, they'll come and talk to you, maybe, right? So we talked about podcasting for, I don't know, a couple of months, maybe 6 months. And then finally Kyle was like, look, he already had all the equipment.
I already had a studio.
Yeah, because he's musician, right? So he's like, well, I got a studio, I got the mics, I got all the software we need. He said, you set up the internet side of it, whatever it is you need to do to get a podcast going. And then once you tell me, like, everything's ready to go and we can publish the first show, then we'll record one, right? So I did that. I made an RSS feed. And then I was like, okay, well, I have an RSS feed. He's like, okay, let's record one tonight. And we recorded episode 1.
It's a very mysterious episode.
Which no longer exists.
Why? What happened to it?
It vanished.
It is a hidden history of our podcast.
It was like, I brought a bottle of wine, and by the end of the show, it was like, that was great. Then I look at the bottle of wine, I'm like, I almost drank that entire bottle of wine.
Yeah.
Then I listened to the show, and I was like, no.
Yeah, because he's hammered.
I got hammered. It was a big bottle, too. It's like one of those.
Oh, so it was you guys who chose to take it down.
Yeah, I was like, dude,
it was him. I was like, that was awesome. He's like, bro, no,
We're
not
not
publishing that. Yeah.
So, our show starts at episode 2.
It starts with episode 2. Yeah.
That's funny, man.
Yeah. So it just and that kind of stuff. We do that kind of stuff with our show all the time. We have our show specifically is a conversation between us two, between the brothers. We do get guests on, but that's not nearly as often as it's just us talking or we're reviewing somebody's book or whatever. It's our conversation, and then we bring our listeners in on it. You know, we read their emails, we get them involved, and so we have a lot of inside jokes. And one of the inside jokes is, you know, episode 2 is the very first episode. Yeah.
But you guys also do or have done like a weekly podcast with Randall Carlson, right?
Yes. Yeah, we started that like 4 years ago. Yeah.
How did that come about?
So we had been aware of Randall for a while, and you know, we mentioned him on our show multiple times, and then I found out that he was going to be at an event in Colorado.
With the Grimerica boys.
Yeah, with Grimerica, with our friends from Grimerica. And so they were hosting it, and I was like, and I had listened to Grimerica for years, you know, so I was like, hey, I told Kyle, I was like, dude, we should go to this. We can meet the Grimerica guys, we can meet Randall. And so we signed up for it. They were going to be there for 10 days. We were going to be there for 3. It's like they were pulling 3 groups of people through. So we were signed up for the first set, and we went and met Randall, and we sort of became staff. They asked us to stick around, so we stayed the entire 10 days, helped drive the vans, you know, sort of helped manage the event. And by the end of it, we were telling Randall, like, dude, like, we'll help you start a podcast. Let's get it going. Like, you have all this research material. Let's do it in podcast format and start publishing it, you know? And so,
and that's how he started Cosmographia?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, once again, I helped him build the RSS feed. We went back and forth on graphics, website. They have I built them a simple website. They have a much more advanced one now, but yeah, at the time it was just like, let's just start doing it, you know? Like, let's just get it out there, you know? You will get better as we go. Right? And so we started it, and it was a weekly show. We started with, I guess we started talking about, what's that guy's name? The Orgone Energy. That was the first episode. We kind of did a sort of cover all this different stuff, and then we went into Atlantis, and then we started doing Younger Dryas, right? And then we went into, I guess, climate change. Now we're doing, what are we talking about now? We went into the sun.
We did the sun a little bit.
And now we're doing like Mounds of America.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you guys just pick different topics to talk about like every month or something? Or?
Randall runs the
because he does like I noticed he does multiple episodes on like the same topic.
Many episodes. Yeah.
Yeah. He decides like the show content. We're on the production side.
Okay.
But it's almost like a classroom where we're students.
Yeah.
So he's presenting all this information. We can ask questions, make stupid jokes.
Yeah. We're good at making dumb jokes.
But yeah, I think. You know, he seems to really thrive in that sort of like classroom setting.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, like I was telling you guys last night, I could listen to him read the phone book.
Yeah.
So interesting to listen to.
Yeah.
And then how did you guys eventually get in touch with Ben again, Ben Kirkwick?
You guys.
Oh, that was simple. When he started publishing videos, I think he had only published 2 or maybe 3, and then I went and watched them, and then I was like, these are amazing. I just sent him a message on Twitter. I was like, bro, your videos are sweet. Come on our show. And he's like, okay, you know.
What was his first video about? Was it about the ancient or the high technology stuff? Was it about like one of his trips to Egypt or what?
I think weren't they the earlier ones were about the Peru stuff? I don't know what the first one.
Yeah,
okay.
man.
Oh, South
sorry,
America
Ben.
stuff?
I don't remember. The first thing I remember watching specifically was the.
Pull up his channel. We'll find out.
Yeah, we'll find out. He did make some stuff on Peru, and he was talking about the drill cores. I think.
The core, the tube drills.
Tube drills, yeah. Yeah.
Maybe he also deleted his first episode.
No way.
Oh, wow.
I know he made Serapeum videos in the very beginning as well.
Oh, yeah.
So. But so I just messaged him on Twitter, and he just agreed to come on the show, and then we've been doing stuff together ever since. Like he's been on our show multiple times. We've been on his. We've gone on tours with him. We go to Egypt. We're going to Egypt with him in a couple weeks. Actually, we're going to be gone for 6 weeks.
You guys were there just in May of last year?
Last year we were there in November.
Oh, yeah. You were there literally 2 months ago.
No. I'm sorry, the year before.
In 2020.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm still in last year, so it was last year from last year. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We were
in Turkey in April. Yeah.
Oh, that's where you guys were in Turkey. That's your recent video all about Göbekli Tepe.
Yeah. Yeah, we were actually in the process of working on an Egypt video on the Serapeum, and then we went to Turkey, and we're like, okay, this is all fresh in our heads. Let's make one on
Right.
Göbekli Tepe right now. So Serapeum got put on hold.
That video was incredible.
Thank you.
That you guys did on Göbekli Tepe.
Thank you.
I loved that. Can you explain for people who don't know, like the origins of Göbekli Tepe? And, you know, obviously there's the theory that it was deliberately buried,
Yeah.
but you guys come up with, like, you guys found out, you guys
science is
you guys
changing.
dug very deep.
Yes.
And you found out it's nuanced. It wasn't necessarily just buried all at once. It was like over 1,000 years or more, right?
Yeah, yeah. And it's well, so the thing about the deliberate burying is it's very mysterious sounding, and that so when you're looking at mysterious stuff or looking for mysterious things, stuff like that can affect the thinking on the entire site, because then you begin to think, well, why would they do this? Like, what would drive them to build something like this and then purposefully bury the whole thing and leave it, you know? So if that didn't happen, then that's very important to know. And the thing is that
we wondered about this for so long.
we
Like
talked
when you
about it.
hear that they intentionally buried this massive site, you're just like, what? Why could that be? And so we were going down these roads of like, what was it? A time capsule? Were they trying to preserve a message for the future?
Yeah.
This became like a common idea, you know, people, because this is what you ask yourself when this
it's
is
like
a
buried
monumental
treasure.
task.
Yeah.
Yeah. So why were they doing it? Were they hiding it? Were they trying to preserve it for the future? All these narratives pop up because of that. And I mean, this goes back to like my earliest interest in the ancient world was looking for arrowheads here. And you start to learn what campsites look like, what human occupation sites look like, you know, in the Neolithic times or whatever, when they were just working with rough stone tools. And you can see what their debitage looks like. And that's when we first walked up to the site of Göbekli Tepe. It was almost instant. I was just like, this is Midden.
Yeah, you can see it in the
What
picture
is Midden?
Midden is basically human occupation layers. They're layers of sediment that are all of
Shadow
the
Perfect Case.
bits and pieces of debris and debitage
Persona
from
3.
normal human activity. Now,
Okay.
obviously, there
This
are
is-
walls and structures in there.
This is a funny question because I figured we would talk about this, and it's interesting because Kyle learned about Midden, and then Kyle and I would go on arrowhead hunting trips, and we'd be walking, and he'd be like, "Oh, this is Midden," and I'd look down, I'm like, "What are you looking at? Like,
Just dirt.
what is the difference, right?" And eventually you learn to see it, and it's a lot of times it's a bunch of very similar sized rocks, like that are kind of squarish, you know, and you just sort of recognize it. You're like, ah, this is somebody made this pile of stones, and it's just very old. They weren't carving the rocks or anything like that. It's just that when you bring a bunch of stones in and you make fires with them, they sort of break in regular patterns, and you end up with kind of a gravel, like a cobble-sized gravel.
Okay.
They just look very regular. It doesn't look natural where everything can be just randomly different sizes.
Right.
They're all sort of very similar, like fist-shaped,
Okay.
fist-sized rocks, and you recognize, oh, there's a pile of these, you know, covered in grass. It's very old, and then you start digging in it. And I mean, you don't have to dig very much, and you find specific markers. Like there will be a certain kind of shell. At least in the States, you find this. There will be a certain kind of snail shell, all in the
Yeah,
Midden.
it just depends on the types of materials that they were around at the time.
Okay.
Like the dirt, for example, looks a little more sooty. It's like got ash in it. It's got a lot of charcoal. But, you know, there's all this stuff that people collected. There are, you know, tiny little broken shards of flint just everywhere.
Everywhere. Yeah.
Well, that was the material they were working with. So if you were in a place where they were working with quartz, then you would be finding chunks and little tiny bits of quartz everywhere. If that's the stone they were working with,
Or obsidian.
Or obsidian.
Yeah.
So there's another example of we were at a place that we had basically confirmed was an occupation site. We was just like, okay, yes, people were living here. We were finding flint. We were finding all this stuff. We're walking away after about an hour of looking around, and somebody finds a little piece of obsidian. I'm like, turn
tiny
around.
little one, yeah.
We're going back. There's an obsidian arrowhead up here.
Yeah.
There's no reason
Somewhere.
for this piece of obsidian flake to be on this hill. It doesn't belong here. It's not from here.
There's no volcanoes anywhere nearby.
Humans brought it here.
Yeah.
Is that
And
where
they
obsidian
made
comes from?
something
Yeah,
out of it.
it's volcanic. Yeah.
So it's stuff. It's little tiny things like that. And sure enough, we found a work piece of obsidian there.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
You found an obsidian arrowhead?
It's not complete. It's a
Okay.
little tiny bird point, like a dart.
And where was this?
I'm not going to tell you about that. It was in Arizona.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was near
secret spot in Arizona.
Where was that?
We were.
It was near Sedona.
Yeah, Sedona. Yeah.
Okay.
Just
So
outside of Sedona.
when you the first time you pulled up to, so which part of is this Göbekli
This is
Tepe the proper where now there's
Yes.
a big dome over the top?
Yeah, this is
Yes.
before the.
Okay.
That chamber right there. That's enclosure C.
Yeah,
I
the one in
believe.
the front there. Yeah.
So
D is the one to the right.
To the right, yeah. So you can see the obviously there are rock walls, and a lot of the stones that you're seeing that are just kind of bigger ones are probably broken down rock walls. But when you look closer at that material, you can tell that it's midden. It's like full of little tiny flint flakes from a people who were working flint every day of their lives making tools. There are pieces of grinding stones, which were they were made of basalt. Now there's a basalt outcrop within like a kilometer of this site. So they were going down to this basalt outcrop, basalt is a volcanic stone as well, and it's a good grinding stone. So they were making grinding stones for grinding whatever, grain, ochre. They ground all kinds of stuff. They ground a massive amount of stuff based on the number of grinding stones found in this place. In fact, the archaeologists were blown away. They were like, why? Like, they even did this pretty cool experiment where they got people to grind on one of these. They made their own grinding stones,
King
just
Nick,
like
how
the
are
ones
you,
at Göbekli
broski?
Tepe, and they grind for 8
I'm gonna do
hours
flex
a
for
day
King Nick.
to see how much
The
material
the
that
Sunday
they came up with, and it was
pre-flex.
enough
Yeah, I
to
knew
feed
it. I
like
called
5
it.
people.
What, man?
Really?
One guy. And so
One guy for 8 hours.
Yeah, so based
Pre
on
and
the
the
amount
post
of
One
grinding
college kid.
stones.
One college kid who's never done it before, grinding for 8 hours,
I
can feed 5
appreciate,
people.
man. I appreciate
So they
you.
were just blown away. They're
Sick
like,
emote.
there are way too many grinding stones here to support whatever population may have been nearby. So what the hell were they doing? They were manufacturing a lot of stuff, whoever these people were that had the grinding stones. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that's connected to who built this place, but there are broken grinding stones all over it, and broken arrowheads, broken flint shards.
stuff around,
So
ain't it?
people were living and working there all the way up to fairly modern times. I mean, to at least medieval times. And I mean, it's being farmed right now, so technically, they're still there. People never left.
Yeah, see the trees on the up in the upper top there? That's an orchard.
Those are olive trees.
Yeah.
So the radiocarbon dating here says it's at least the farthest back it goes is how old again?
It's like, oh man,
God, look at the landscape there. The view there is just unbelievable.
I'm just gonna say roughly 12,000 years old.
Yeah.
You're on
Roughly
server.
12,000.
What type
Yeah.
of server?
Now, they had a lot of difficulty.
Discord
in
server?
dating. They
Me too,
they
dude.
already had
I just made my Discord
for I don't know how
server,
many
My
decades
first one
an
yesterday too.
established
Oh wow, what a great view.
a well-established dating of artifacts.
Join mine if you
by
if you
style.
want to. It's fun.
Okay.
We do a lot of
So in
AI.
the
They have
whole
AI. We have
Anatolian
AI
area,
bots.
They have been
We have
digging in
DALI
midden
3 AI
piles,
bots.
human occupation layers, looking at styles of flint, points, arrowheads, tools, and had all this.
Paste
and then
yours,
had
buddy. Paste
very,
yours, and I'll enter yours
good
too.
carbon dates from those layers.
Paste
in
your link.
multiple
I'll
different
I'll
sites,
enter it. if
corroborating
you
the
want me
evidence
to.
of each one, so that they had a well-established time period for the types of arrowheads you would find. So if you pick up this type of arrowhead, they could instantly say, "Well, that's 8,000 years old," because of the style.
Okay.
At the very bottom layers of Göbekli Tepe, they were finding the arrowheads of a people that were 12,000 years old.
And how do they know those people were 12,000 years old?
Because of the dates from other sites.
Because they had dug so many other sites all around Anatolia
Yeah.
Okay.
that had those arrowheads in layers that had carbon datable materials that showed that date.
Okay.
So like,
What's up, guys? I'm super psyched to introduce to you another product that I've been using for years now that was also recommended to me by the world-renowned nutritional scientist, Dr. Dominic D'Agostino, and it is called Keto Brains. Keto Brains Nootropic Creamer is a way to perfectly dial in your morning beverage to bring you razor-sharp focus on demand. I start out every day with Keto Brains in my cup of coffee to combat the midday slump, and I use it for pre-workout. Keto Brains Nootropic Creamer has efficacious doses of focus-inducing alpha-GPC, lion's mane, alpha wave promoting L-theanine, and ketone stimulating C8-MCT powder. And all of those high functioning nootropics are packed into a delicious, creamy coconut powder. It tastes amazing, it's a keto nootropic powerhouse, and it tickles all the right neurotransmitters to give you the flow and jitter-free energy with absolutely zero crash. There's no dosage tricks involved, it's just one scoop is a full serving. You can put it in your coffee, your tea, put it in your water, whatever you want, and you get 30 full doses per package. There's no pills, and there's absolutely no waiting for it to work. It kicks in like that. You can keep your brain razor sharp, primed, and ready for action with Keto Brain's nootropic cream. Whether you're an entrepreneur juggling multiple projects, a student studying for exams, or you're an athlete that's trying to optimize your training, Keto Brains will not let you down. All right, here, I'm going to list all the ingredients contained in Keto Brains and what they do. It increases ketone production via AG-C8-MCT powder. It increases acetylcholine and HGH production via 300 milligrams of alpha GPC. It increases GABA and alpha wave production via 250 milligrams of L-theanine. And it increases BDNF and NGF via 500 milligrams of lion's mane mushrooms. And these are all carefully sourced and third-party tested ingredients. This stuff quite literally increases acute brain function, protects your brain and mitochondria long-term, and last but not least, it makes your coffee delicious. If you're interested in Keto Brains and you want to get a big discount, just go to the link in the description below, ketobrains.com, and use the promo code Danny20 when you check out. Again, that's ketobrains.com. Hit the link below and use the promo code Danny20 at checkout. Back to the show.
Many times over at many different sites, when they found those arrowheads and they carbon dated something from the same layer, they would get the same date. So it's pretty good corroborating evidence that those arrowheads are consistent with a date of roughly 12,000 years. So when they get to the bottom, the archaeologists looking at the bottom layers of Göbekli Tepe are like, this is 12,000 years old. The burial layers, not the stonework.
I'm not laughing at people, I'm just laughing at
the layers at the very bottom.
I'm
that
so
start
bad
to
at
build up
Discord,
with
man.
dirt, right, that are burying the site.
Discord
now, in
newbie.
some cases,
so that means the stonework is older, or
it
newer?
has to be at least
as
that
old.
old. Yeah. It can't be it can't really be younger unless there's something another drastic thing.
I don't know
like
if I'll
they
do, I
dug
might
through
do
all
that.
that stuff.
I did do that in another
And the
person's
idea is
server.
that
I
the
have
people that
done
were
that.
making and using these arrowheads heads were just like very primitive hunter-gatherers that would not be capable.
Up until this
post
point,
sure,
that's
maybe.
who they were.
I'll think about it.
You see what I'm saying? Up until the point of the discovery of Göbekli Tepe, those hunter-gatherers were considered primitive hunter-gatherers who never really built.
I haven't started yet.
Right.
Astonishing.
Yeah.
And they didn't even
not
have
monumental.
They didn't have pottery.
start
The
in
name
like
of
a
this
minute or
culture
two.
is called the PPNA, Pre-Pottery Neolithic A, because there's a PP in B.
Pre-pottery Neolithic A.
Yeah.
So they didn't have pottery, yet they were making gigantic standing stone circles by flattening bedrock. I mean, they took a slope of bedrock and flattened it.
Yeah, see
made it level.
If you look at in enclosure C there, you see the little pedestal that the central stone is on.
Yes.
Yeah. See how it's on a pedestal and then around it is flat? That is smooth, flattened limestone bedrock. It isn't.
Oh wow!
The pedestal itself is still the bedrock. It's not like
they basically cut out all the negative stone bedrock around that pedestal.
Yeah. And then they cut a slot into the pedestal and then slotted that standing stone into it.
What?
Yeah. So it's not a simple construction, and the floors of the enclosures are smooth and beautiful, and even I don't know if this, I can't remember this one, but in some cases the sides of the pedestal are decorated in relief carvings. So there's like
high
a row
relief?
of, it's not high, it's like mid relief, but they are sticking out. Yeah,
It's
they
not
stick
like
out.
It's not like they're cutting the thing into the stone. They're cutting the stone away and leaving the carving.
Right.
There is a high relief one. It's almost it's a sculpture of a cat.
It's behind that pillar.
Yeah, it's directly behind it there.
You can't see it in this photo.
Yeah, but it's amazing work.
How much deeper do you think it goes? How much?
Well, that's the bedrock, so it
that's
seems
the bedrock
like the bottom.
there.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the bottom.
Yeah.
In some places, there's a lot of tunnels in the bedrock. Not at Göbekli Tepe, but in this area of Turkey, they were tunneling into bedrock.
Notice this in the picture here. This is another thing to point out. They had these portal stones where they had cut this. So you imagine you cut a big square slab and then you completely cut the middle of it out.
Thanks,
make
buddy. Thanks, man.
A portal stone.
There's AI art.
that
We
one's
can make
broken.
AI art.
one
Let's
in the
make
middle.
one right
Yeah,
now
yeah.
on
We
stream.
didn't get to go to the museums, but
can do that.
I've
It'd be
seen
funny. It'd
some
be jokes.
photographs of portal stones like this that have high relief
Thanks, man.
carvings of like cats standing on the edge of that
I think
portal,
you're the
reaching over as though
third
they might
guy.
be drinking out of a pool in the center of the portal. Beautiful works, you know.
Yeah, so when we went, the earthquake and flood had just happened in Turkey, so we couldn't.
Oh yeah.
So
Ben
all
was
the
telling me
museums,
about that.
yeah. So the museums were closed, and they had moved, 40,000 crates of artifacts out of the museum.
Dude, a ton of people died in that
Yes,
in that earthquake.
a lot of people. Yeah. Yeah. See the high relief cat there?
Oh my God, that's nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think we're most interested in the building techniques. There's
Look
like
at that.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
it's
So
amazing.
think about this: like to make this pillar, the person at the quarry had to leave a sizable chunk of stone sticking out of the side of that pillar.
So that the artist had material to work with.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's this.
Loading.
This is thoughtful. This is planning. The guy at the quarry may not be the guy who carved this cat or whatever this thing is.
Still loading.
I
Takes a
doubt that it's
minute.
the same person. So you have to have
Evo has the
engineering and
watermarks
planning.
on
And there's
it
actually
though,
some
but
new data coming out by some scientists that looking at the entire layout of the stone circles that suggests the entire site was planned. The original narrative was that the original idea was that one circle was built and used for a while, and then they sort of like, they put all this stuff into sort of a religious context. Like, well, it
Alright,
has
I'm
to be
gonna
a religion.
start like now.
Why else would you build a
Yeah,
stone
it's
circle?
ritual, it's religion, it's yeah.
No one builds, no atheist ever builds stone circles.
Apparently. No atheist ever builds beautiful temple buildings or stone circles or monuments.
Could be true. I don't know.
Maybe they don't.
But it's like they do all these rituals, and then it's like, okay, the rituals are done. The
I
gods
like
are
the top
appeased.
right
Bury
one,
that
dude.
circle,
The top
dig another
right
one,
one
build
is
another circle.
sick. I'm gonna save it.
This was the early on ideas.
Dude, that top
But
right
now
one.
it looks like the entire site was planned.
All the other ones are fucked.
And it's
What's wrong with
interesting
the guy
because
with
when
his
you
pants
start
half
reading
down? That's not good.
the papers, they
Bad look. Why
with
is-
the artifacts and the
why
carvings,
it
they
looks
have
so
totems.
different.
The totems.
So
are
why do they
strange.
assume we're white?
Yeah. With the
I don't
artifacts
think
and the
you're
carvings,
white,
it looks like
King Nick,
each
are you?
enclosure may have had
I think you're black. I think you're a black
specific
man.
animal type associated with it.
They
So you have
assume
like
that-
the
I'm
circle,
sorry that they assume
the
wrong.
enclosure of the cat, the enclosure of the boar, the enclosure of the
I'm
bird.
sorry if you're not.
The
serpent.
enclosure of the serpent,
Yes,
the
that's
enclosure
what
of the
AI
fox,
made.
right? And so it's like you start to think of like, is this a kind
Yeah,
of
man. I've seen like
Magic
I
school?
follow
Yeah,
I followed
it's like-
you.
Sure,
Like, I
guys
see
will
your
obviously figure out
videos.
what
I've
the
seen you on
fuck it was.
Instagram or something.
I think it
Seen
might
you somewhere.
actually be.
I think the Gryffindors are going to beat the
It's the
Slytherins.
Yeah, like
Gryffindors.
some community too.
Which
Make
is too
up
bad because clearly we're part of
community.
Slytherin, right?
Oh God.
Brothers of the Serpent. But yeah, it's
There's a video.
I
There's a
mean,
YouTube video.
I really like the idea that the standing stones themselves, at least the central pillars and the flattened platforms, may be very, very old, far older than even the artifacts and found in there. Because that's the thing, when you dig into the archaeological papers on this, they do say
With
specifically,
his
they
ass
say
hanging out.
the dates that
Come
we
on,
get
man. What if I click
from
this?
the lithics, which would be the arrowheads, the PP&A stuff,
What happens there?
from the
I was
pottery,
doing
and
it
also from
again?
dating
Come
organic
on.
material in the mortar of the rough stone walls at the very bottom, give us these early dates of 12,000 before present. Cannot date the megalithic architecture.
Christ, man.
It just doesn't
Oh, I
give you the dates for
understand.
that
You
stuff 'cause it
select.
could have been there before
Oh, that's pretty
that.
cool.
The big T pillars.
Yes,
Yeah, and the shaping of the bedrock.
right.
Also.
So is it possible that
That is
that
pretty funny.
somebody built this stuff a long
Overblading
time
it.
ago, and then they just disappeared,
Yeah.
or
that's
went
what I'm
somewhere
talking
else or
about.
whatever,
I'm
and then
really-
later
I'm really
peoples
fucking
found it
half naked
and
guy.
started rebuilding it. And then
This is what
some of the outer, smaller pillars are their attempts to recreate. So they're, in other words, they're learning, some of these techniques.
Yeah.
And then they live here. They build the rough stone walls. Then maybe they cover them over. Who knows?
Look at this
So
one.
we kind of came up with this idea that I love this idea. The
That
idea
third one
of
is the
ancient
best. Check it out. Select
archaeologists.
Yeah.
Yeah, baby.
There is evidence that people
Think
later,
about what archaeologists do. I mean, the people that have come here and dug out this site, they have excavated the site. They've stood
I
up
don't think this looks
pillars,
like either
they've
of
tried
us,
to rebuild
but I
some
just
rock walls.
like how this one is made. 'Cause
So
this looks like
when I
Fontainebleau.
look at this
looks like
site
Miami
from a
Beach.
construction standpoint, these rock
100%.
walls between the pillars, those don't look like they belong. The building style doesn't match.
Right.
The rock walls are not shaped stones. They're just sort of whatever size and shape that they are.
All right.
They use mortar.
Restart.
They don't have carving on them. They used plaster, supposedly. And in a lot of cases, the rock walls cover up the carvings on the pillars. So it looks to me like someone came in and tried to restore an already ancient and dilapidated site. And so they would be doing what modern archaeologists do. They come in, they find this just pile of rubble, and then they start lining up the blocks and numbering them, reorganizing them, try to rebuild the entire temple or whatever it is. And why do we do this in the first place? Because we're interested in our past. It wouldn't surprise me in the least if some people 12,000 years ago found this site and were like, we've got to see what this was all about.
12,000 years ago, that was right in the middle of the Younger Dryas, right?
Right after the end of it, just after.
12,000 was the very end of it.
Yeah.
And it lasted for
Was it like
1,000 years, right?
Like 11,600 or something like that?
Yeah, 11,006 would be the end of the Younger Dryas, something like that. And
So,
then,
yeah, you're right.
So yeah, then you're looking at people, this would be just after, right? The end of it, I'm pretty sure. 10,000 something BC.
So this was built after.
Yeah. Well, the dates for the lithics and the bottoms of the walls. Like we don't know when that's what I'm trying to say. Like it may be much older than that.
So these ancient archaeologists could have been after the Younger Dryas,
right?
Trying to figure out what this was and trying to preserve it and
could be
look into our past.
There is evidence that later peoples came and dug down into the midden, specifically into the. If you look at enclosure C again, that one, see how the top of that pillar is broken?
Yeah.
And the pillar down on the lower right, the big one down there, is also busted. There's two huge pillars there and they're broken. You can see all the shattered pieces lying around in the bottom of the enclosure there. Somebody specifically around, was it 6,000 BC?
I think something like that.
6,000 BC. So, 4,000 to 6,000 years after the site was no longer in use, somebody came along and specifically dug a hole down to the tops of those pillars and smashed them and then reburied the site.
At least that's what it indicates. We don't know if they really smashed them, but
Right,
I mean, it could be that someone smashed them.
Yeah. What was the term they used for that?
Iconoclasm.
Iconoclastic. Yeah. So
I wonder, I mean, think about the earthquake that just happened. I wonder how many of those earthquakes has this had to survive?
Right. That would be one reason to bury it on purpose if you didn't want it to, if you're like, I'm not going to be here to take care of it anymore, but you bury it so the earthquakes won't destroy it.
Yeah, it could protect it, huh?
Yeah.
But really, the burial looks more like collapses of the midden in something maybe like the heavy rainfall that they got.
Yeah.
Because you can see at the site, you can see that they have used sandbags and all this stuff to shore up the walls around the excavation site, the modern excavation of this site.
Okay.
They're trying to prevent all of this midden and soil and rocks and rubble from falling back into these enclosures. Right. So if these enclosures were already, like at the time, maybe covered in midden, and people dug them out, then the midden would collapse back into it and, of course, be jumbled up. That's the other problem with the dating of the site, is that the midden from within these enclosures is in some cases inverted. The older stuff is at the top, the younger stuff is at the bottom.
Oh,
that makes sense. And this is
sense.
why they thought it was buried. It's like they're just throwing material in.
Yeah.
But it
that
could
makes
also
sense.
be from natural collapses of material that have fallen back into the enclosure.
Yeah, they described the material that was in there as in a series of lenses, which is, that's what the soil falls in and makes this sort of lens shape in the hole, and then another set falls in from this side and makes another one, and then so when they dig through, they can see it doesn't have a stratigraphy really like naturally laid sediment, but you can see that it's several different collapses.
So has this all been accepted in like the mainstream now? Like now that this has been discovered and tested and looked at and analyzed for so long, is this now, have they officially rewritten the human timeline? Or is it still
the human timeline?
Is it still just YouTube speculation?
No. Like when we were doing all the reading and the research for making the Göbekli Tepe video specifically, we were reading the scientific papers written by the people who had been working on the site, right? So all this stuff we're telling you is stuff that came from them, not so much. They probably wouldn't specifically say that the that the stone pillars could be far, far older, but they have specifically said that they cannot date them.
Yeah.
And all that they have been able to determine is like, you know, the latest possible date for those things. Like they must have been built at that time or before 10,000 BC-ish. So
the pillars.
Yes. Yeah. Because the material in the bottom is basically that.
Yeah, the other thing that it did really to the human timeline, what I feel like it should have done was made people accept that humans were doing megalithic stonework, like, or that civilization may have started quite a bit earlier than what was previously believed. But instead what they did was they modified what they believed that hunter-gatherers do in their spare time.
Yeah.
Which is, in my opinion, ridiculous. It's like, well, we don't want to cede the point that everything that we've said about humans' advancement through time is incorrect. We'll just modify this. That's the definition of this term.
Photo.
See the anthropomorphizing of the pillars. This is the other weird thing, and you'll love this. Like we didn't come up with this connection, but many people have pointed it out. See how each pillar there, the two central ones, they've got that V, or the V shape going down. That's an
sideways V.
It's a sideways V.
Yeah.
It's an arm. So there you can view the pillars as basically standing human figures. They have arms that go down the side and then wrap around in the front. See if you can find a picture that shows the front of them with the fingers.
Yeah, they're standing there kind of holding their belts.
Yeah, they have belts on, so you can view the T shape at the top as sort of the head.
And there's arms carved into them?
Yeah, they're standing with their fingers wrapped around the front of their belts.
Yeah, it's a very strange and kind of eerie representation.
They're wearing fox
there
pelts.
you go. See his fingers?
Right there?
National Geographic.
Down
Oh,
right
no.
there. Yes,
Up in-
this one.
This one?
Yeah.
Oh.
See if you can open that up. Right, so he's... there we go.
Blow that
Yeah.
thing up.
I wish I'd have
So
thought
this is
to
like
bring
his
this.
hands down to his side?
Yeah, so see the belt going around down there, and it's got a fox pelt hanging from the belt on the front, and those are his fingers coming around the front there, just above the belt.
He's kind of holding his
They're
belly.
real thin. They're incredibly thin.
And
right?
you can see the two lines going up the center. He's wearing like a jacket.
Yeah, he's got a robe or a jacket on that's got a belt with complicated buckles or something around it, and a fox pelt or something hanging from the front, right? This is a very interesting carving. So they are supposed to be anthropomorphic figures, and so
aliens,
right? It's yeah, or some kind of strange hominid god,
long
right?
heads.
Now you want to start thinking about long heads or Anunnaki or something.
Right.
There's two of them in each enclosure, and they're it's like twins or brothers or two different guys standing there in the middle, taller than everything else, sort of surrounded by a council or knowledge in the shape of other T-pillars facing them. But the other weird thing, and this is wild. See if you can. Oh, he's up. Yeah. When you get back there, pull up some pictures of the Moai statues on Easter Island.
Yo, Easter Island just got like burned down, right?
Did it?
And a bunch of those heads got like torched.
Oh no.
Yeah.
How do you burn stone heads?
It's not. They're not stone. They're what are they, Steve?
They're volcanic ash.
Yeah, they're made of ash.
They look like concrete, but they're
Like tough? Is it volcanic tough?
I don't know, but it's
We could find out.
You can burn it.
I thought they were basalt.
So you can see some of these. Yeah, just pull up one of the pictures of where there's a bunch of them in a row. Yeah. It may be tough to see on this.
Oh gosh, it's gonna make me zoom in.
Oh yeah.
The ads zoom bigger than the regular picture.
Can you find out exactly what it's called? These stones are made out of, Steve.
Well, if it's ash, it might be volcanic tuff, which is
Yeah.
actually a pretty
Tuff.
soft. I don't know why they call it tough. It's
Yeah,
soft.
it's soft.
Huh.
It's not tough at all. Right. Okay. Yeah. So there you go. It's volcanic tuff, solidified ash.
Oh, you're right.
Okay. So yeah, that stuff. That's what the tunnel systems. Why can't I think of Darren Q.
Yeah, Darren Q.
In Turkey, they're dug out of volcanic tuff.
Oh, really?
'Cause, yeah, it's actually not.
That underground labyrinth?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not that difficult to dig.
Whoa, look at the shit on his back.
Yeah,
have
this is
never
one that
seen
was
that.
buried for a long time, and he has all kinds of stuff on his back. Yeah. All kinds of stuff. There are a lot of stylistic similarities to some of the things that are carved onto these Moai statues as what we see at Göbekli Tepe.
How have you never showed me this?
This is the first time.
Keeping this from
you know, I gotta hold back those snake facts, bro. Sometimes.
So, did you guys go to Darren Kuyu?
Not yet. No.
Can you go in there?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
What do you think Darren Kuyu was for? What was that built for?
I mean, the first thing it makes me think of is like a.
Oh, go to that one with the people standing next to it.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
See if you can get in on the.
It may be one of the many arcs.
Oh, looky there.
There, those
Yeah.
fingers, dude. Look at that.
Oh, yeah, the
Zoom that
fingers.
picture in.
Yeah.
Do the.
Oh
There we go.
my gosh, dude.
Yeah. See the
see the
fingers?
That is wild.
It's so weird how it's similar. There are other statues in other places that have this same pose. Now, you could argue like this isn't that big of a deal, the pose or whatever, but I do find the long, thin, strange-looking fingers to be sort of. It's just weird that they would come up with that two different things at so different places and different times. You know, that's the question. How old are these things? You know, are some of them very old?
They have no way to carbon date the tough stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
And look how deep it is in the sediment.
So deep.
Yeah.
Now you could carbon
So
date that sediment
intentionally-
possibly.
Yeah.
Right.
Like if you get to the bottom and you find a piece of organic material, like a burnt, like say maybe somebody had a campfire
Yeah.
nearby,
Right.
uphill slightly, and so then when this sort of inundation of soil came in, maybe it pushed some of that charcoal around in the same layers at the base of this statue. You could date those. And then you could maybe make a correlation that the statue was stood up in this place at least by this date.
Right.
But that date could be very young because when the statue was not buried, the statue was already very old. You see what I mean? The date of the charcoal of somebody's fire pit near the statue doesn't mean the statue dates to the age of the fire pit. The statue could be much older.
Right.
Just can't be
That's
younger.
that's just the minimum date.
Yeah. The other interesting thing with this, I remember when I was first, you know, like soon after the accident, when I'm looking at Easter Island, you know, years and years ago, you can find, or at least at the time I did, I found old drawings where, you know.
What is that airplane on the bottom right of that picture? Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's
Oh,
okay.
that's image. I'm sorry, I'm not gonna bring that up.
No,
There's
no.
like an airplane.
Yeah, there is it's somebody's watermark. I don't know what that is. Yeah. There are sketches where some of the first people to visit the island sat and, you know, and sketched the heads and the sort of the landscape, and they're, you know, very well done. And you can find a photograph of that same spot. So 400 years later, 400 or 500 years later, of the same spot, and it hasn't changed at all. The heads are all in the same, you know, how some of them are tilted this way, some
Right.
tilted that way.
Right.
They're buried to the same spot, you know, like up to the chin or just up to the shoulders, as this sketch from 400 years ago. And then you look at the timeline where they're supposed to have all been built between, I can't remember exactly, was it 1400 to 1500 AD, something like that? That was when they were all erected. So the people who did the sketch came there around 100 years after that, and the statues are already buried up to their necks. And then in the next 400 years, nothing changes. And so it's sort of difficult to believe. But the other interesting thing is...
So wait, 1400 AD, they were stood up again?
No, I think that the idea is that that the first European explorers that showed up on the island showed up about 100 years after the statues had been put up.
According to
The standard story.
The standard story.
According to the standard story. Got it. Okay.
Yeah, and don't, you know, like, I may be getting some of this a little inaccurate. I can't remember all the dates exactly, but it's basically around 100 years after the statues had been completed, or nobody was making them anymore, is when the first Europeans showed up. And then they made sketches, and then you can compare those sketches, you know, to,
Look at how similar this looks.
It's very similar to the
T-pillar
yeah,
carving.
the
Is it
style,
really?
the
Oh my
birds, the
gosh.
vultures, it's really strange stuff.
Just keep scrolling down a little bit, Steve.
But you know, see, this is what people do when you find volcanic tuff. You just do this. This is like this is a natural human thing.
oh, look, there's a whole video. What's carved on their backs?
Yeah.
That is beautiful. Now wow.
Somebody superimposed paint onto a.
Oh,
no,
yeah.
they actually painted it.
Oh. Did they? Did
That's
they paint
awesome.
a real one? Yeah. Wow. That's amazing.
That's so weird, man.
Check out that bird thing. With
yeah. Like a vulture. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks very
Or a rabbit?
ceremonious,
Is it a rabbit?
ritualistic.
Yeah. So the other
It's
thing,
like if you're that advanced, why are you wasting your time carving stones?
I also love that they have these red hats, you know. What are those things?
That's a fez.
It's a fez.
So
Ain't
interesting.
never gonna do it without your fez.
Do you think this
on.
was just super easy for them to do?
It does seem like
creating this stuff is
Yeah.
like it's like nothing to them, or do you think that they actually spent fucking months and months and years creating this stuff out of this stone?
Well, either way, you want to know what is the reason. Like, what was the drive to do it?
Right.
You know, like
Right.
if it was easy, or even if it was difficult, like why did they want to do this stuff? You know, and a lot of times you find the standard story to be sort of, it's just not very satisfactory. Anyway, the thing I was pointing out is that
What is that?
That's the caldera, the extinct volcano.
Oh, that's the volcano on Easter Island.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's also a form of writing called Rongo Rongo.
Yeah.
That comes from this place that's never been deciphered. Well, they haven't found very much of it.
Yeah.
Some wood carvings of the writing style, but it's very interesting looking.
And
there you go.
Yeah, and it's extremely similar. Lots of very similar characters to.
Wow. Can you zoom in on that a little bit?
Isn't that awesome looking?
That is incredible.
It looks almost perfect.
Yeah.
That may be a recreation. I've
yeah.
seen it on a wood.
They're on wood, yeah.
But yeah, that's awesome. It's like figures and stuff. They're somewhat stylized hieroglyphs.
Like think of semaphore. You know, semaphore is like a language of body. You know, like
Yeah.
people at sea would use this, or with you know, it looks like semaphore. Like it's like little stylized drawings of human figures doing different positions. Which is why we came up with this idea that it was a.
There's the wood.
Yeah, there's the wood.
No, that's the same thing. It's that papyrus.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
But so what's interesting is how similar it looks to the Indus Valley script, which is, you know, that's in Pakistan, and there's an undeciphered script there that looks almost exactly like this stuff from Easter Island. Again, on the wrong side of the world. So is there a connection? Now you're thinking, you know, okay, so you got Indus Valley, you got Göbekli Tepe.
So far
And
apart.
both of these are pointing to, in stylized ways, and even with the writing, to Easter Island. There's a lot of the very same kind of figures. Some of them are different, but it's very similar.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the most perplexing things to me is how, based on how advanced these people were, how long it took them to do this kind of stuff. Like, did it really take them that long, or was it just super fucking easy for them to do?
There's some stuff that looks like it was easy to do, just based on how much. I don't know. It's like some of the granite stonework that you see in Egypt,
And
where
in Peru.
they're like removing material after they've put the stone in place, because they're essentially facing off a wall to make it flat. The amount of material they're removing from some of these stones is just insane. Like, you can't imagine.
I could pull some up here if this.
Yeah, I mean, just
that's what. I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
No. I was just gonna say, the Serapeum boxes by themselves are just so fascinating because, as you know, Chris Dunn talks about in his books. He asked one of the biggest granite manufacturers in the country what it would take for them to reproduce that box, and he said we couldn't reproduce that the way it is. We would have to take separate slabs and bolt them together, and it would cost upwards of $500,000.
Yeah, we can look at some of those too, the boxes in the Serapeum. But this is Menkaure, the third pyramid on Giza, the small one that people mostly don't pay attention to. But it has this very interesting stonework at the base of it. Like Menkaure, just like the other pyramids there, are built out of the core material. All this stuff up here is limestone, right? This is all limestone blocks. But down here, I can move in.
So this is the smallest one in the line of three?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Look at those granite blocks. Some people in here for scale. These are huge. And these would be the casing stones or the facing stones, right? So the other two pyramids were also cased
right
in this beautiful Tura limestone. It's a very hard white limestone, and they were flattened all the way up. And there's old writings about how they would.
Pardon this brief interruption, but I want to take a second to talk about our sponsor, Verso. Now, if you've heard this podcast before, chances are you already know how obsessed I am with health and longevity, which is why one of my favorite guests to have on this show is nutritional scientist and neuroscientist Dr. Dom D'Agostino, who actually introduced me to this stuff. Verso is a company that is dedicated to translating scientific breakthroughs into products that hold the potential to increase longevity. The problem with aging is we accumulate these zombie cells, or old damaged cells, that linger beyond their useful life. These zombie cells infect other healthy cells, speeding up the aging process, causing things like hair loss, wrinkles, arthritis, cancer, dementia, and everything in the realm of aging. What scientists have realized is that we can manually induce autophagy, meaning the cleanup process of the old zombie cells and replacing them with new ones. Verso's new Clean Being, which I take every night, is a powerful blend of senolytic molecules that help promote the body's natural cleanup processes like autophagy and apoptosis, promoting better cellular health, supporting lower inflammation and natural cardioprotective functions, while boosting protection against age-related diseases. The three main ingredients in Clean Being are spermidine, luteolin, and dihydroquercetin, which play key roles in the control of gene expression and are essential for cell growth and proliferation, specifically when it comes to cardiovascular and cognitive function, skin health, vision, and the immune system. Head on over to ver.so and use the coupon code DANNY, it's spelled D-A-N-N-Y, to save 15% off your entire order, or just go to ver.so/Danny. Back to the show.
Shine like mirrors in the desert before the casing stones were gone, because they were so.
And they were stripped off and looted.
Yeah, there was earthquakes, and then they're gone. Yeah.
The way to look at this is like this is the roof of the structure.
Yeah.
That casing.
Right.
So you build the interior of the structure you can build it with much softer stone. In some cases, they built them with mud brick. But you then case that in a very hard stone. Tura limestone is a very hard, silica-rich form of limestone. So it's much harder. It erodes way slower. Granite, obviously, is even harder than that, and it takes forever to erode. But that's like you're putting a roof on the structure to protect the structure, and then when it's gone, you can see that the core masonry there is just heavily.
It's getting degraded.
Now, do we know if the interior of these smaller pyramids is anything similar to the Great Pyramid?
They have passageways and chambers. We haven't been in Menkaure yet. We're going to do that this year.
But do we have diagrams? Like we have diagrams of all the all the chambers. So we know what the insides of these look like. They're mapped out.
For the most part, if I recall correctly, the Great Pyramid is the only one that has any substantial structures in the body of the pyramid itself. The rest of them mostly go underground. So it seems like the entire.
The Bent Pyramid has some pretty substantial.
Yes, you're right. The Bent Pyramid has structures inside of it.
I've scanned that
as well. Yeah. But most of the time, it's just see the entrance back here. This is the entrance right here.
Okay.
So this is just a descending passageway. It basically goes straight down and into the ground, and then there's chambers way down in there. The Great Pyramid does this as well, but there's a descending passage that goes up as well, and then you have the Grand Gallery and the Queen's Chamber and the King's Chamber up inside the body of the pyramid. Mm-hmm. But when you go into Khafre, the middle pyramid, it just has a descending passageway, and you're down underneath it.
But there's nothing in the guts of the main pyramid.
Yeah. But anyway, so you're noticing these blocks, and we're talking about this because of was it easy, right? This is not insubstantial amounts of stone, as you can see from the people standing here. These are huge blocks. They have to be tilted, and they're also, notice how they're kind of puffy or like pillowy.
Yeah.
So they were leaving extra material on because they were going to flatten it like this. Let's see, I'll move forward.
Oh,
here.
Some of them are flat and perfect.
Yeah, just right around the entrance. And also notice all these nubs.
Yeah,
you see all
those
these?
are the same nubs on the ones in South America, in Central America.
Yeah, they have these all over the world. There's a lot of interesting ideas about these. Kyle and I kind of lean towards the idea that they're functional, like they were used for maneuvering, and then they were cut off during the finishing process. But here you can see the part of the flattened face.
Mm-hmm.
Oops, let me zoom back out and move here. And then there's some like reverse nubs, insets, for grabbing this block. But look at all this extra material. Like, look at this huge, and granite's heavy. So you're talking about a lot of extra material on here. I could come back to some of it, but here's the flattened face.
So how come the rest of it's not flattened like this?
Well, that's the question. That is a great question. It's like, why didn't they finish the job? You know, but there's this big square of flattened area right here in front of the entrance. Which seems funny, you know, if this is a tomb and you're trying to sort of hide the entrance and everything like that, well, this makes it relatively obvious where the door is. Right?
Yes.
And also because the other two large pyramids had casing stones all over them, and those were completely flattened out.
They were perfect.
Yeah, they were finished. This just looks like it was not completed. Like they were in the process, or they were using this surface as a survey point. This is the other thing we've discussed.
Yeah. We actually have some evidence after walking all the way around this pyramid, looking. So you can imagine that one of these blocks, this flattened blocks, because it has a top and bottom, and then it has this beveled, this angled face, then there's going to be a certain cut degree angle.
Yeah.
A flat surface here and a flat surface there.
Right.
That the other blocks will not have because they're all puffy and pillowy on the front. So when we were walking around the pyramid, there's just piles and piles of granite laying on the sides.
They've been quarrying it.
Quarried out. So we were looking for blocks with this angle, two flat surfaces
Like
with
a
this
prism
angle.
stone, yeah.
And we found them.
Yep. Around
the other two sides that are not uncovered. So I think that there was a flattened. We think that there's a pretty good case to be made that there was a flattened surface about this size on each
face
side of the pyramid.
There is one on the other side, which we'll look at in a minute.
Yeah.
Like on this is the north side, so around on the east side of the pyramid, there is another flattened face. And the other interesting thing, just to point out, is the only reason we have this pile of casing stones here is because as people were quarrying the stuff above it, the granite off here, they were making piles of rubble down here, and it basically just covered this stuff up. And it became too difficult to dig out, so they just left it. So it still survives because it got buried under the other quarrying rubble.
Intentionally buried.
There you go. Intentionally buried, right?
Right.
So, but the other point, the thing to...
So if they were going to smooth the stones, they would start from the top? Maybe
you would want to, yeah.
You'd think that you'd want to start from the top stones.
Right.
But you have to build it from the bottom. So this is the thing. How do you maintain, as you're going up, the integrity of this flat surface as you're stacking these blocks up? In other words, where as you're setting each stone in, you know it has enough material on it that when you flatten it out, there isn't going to be a hole somewhere.
Right.
So maybe you flatten out a square area at the first few courses at the base to give yourself a survey platform so that you can check as you go up using, whatever method you got.
A really simple method to check the distance from the bottom of this to the top of it, and then extend that further out as you make new courses. Like, do we have enough stone sticking out where they actually meet each other in this crevice? Is that far enough out so that
right
when
here
we flatten it, it won't be a void?
So there's no void.
See this deep crevice between the stones here and here? You want to make sure that when you flatten it to here, there's not actually going to be like a hole in here somewhere.
Right, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can do it by, you can just put a couple of like rods in here with string and pull, and you end up pulling the string all the way up, and you're just checking distances as you go up. Do we have enough stone in each place?
And you can move it this way and that way.
Yeah, you can sweep it back and forth and check the whole face. And so that was the idea, is like, did they have 4 of these on each face? And you have 1 facing crew per side of the pyramid. And they just didn't have time to finish the job.
Which is another interesting...
Yeah.
So it seems like they built the Great Pyramid first, and then this was the last one.
Or maybe maybe Khafre, the central pyramid, was the one built first. Ben actually thinks that's the first one.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And it's interesting because that one, the other great thing about that one is it has a couple of rows at the very bottom of granite casing stones that have been finished, and they are, they're just unbelievably magnificent, just perfectly cut, beautiful granite casing stones. And then as you walk around that pyramid, there's a row of granite rubble all the way around the thing because people were cutting them up to take these beautiful faces that have been cut. Because the source of this granite's 500 miles away. So if you're somebody living near this area...
That's so wild.
Yeah.
You need to fucking get a plane to go. You need to fly there when you're traveling.
Yeah.
That's how far
wild.
it is.
It's not wild. This is just what people do.
It's the easiest way to,
Totally natural.
Like, listen, when you want to build a cool structure in the desert, you bring stone from 500 miles away and you stack it up into a triangle.
Yes.
It's like the simplest thing to do. Like, everybody does it. It's crazy how that
really
becomes
puts
a story.
it into perspective when you're there and you realize, like you guys were telling me last night, Yeah, we had to catch a plane to the quarry.
Yeah.
That's how fucking far it is.
Well, we catch a plane and then we have to ride a boat for 4 days to get to the quarry. Yeah.
How do I get it?
What do you want to do?
I just want to go back to the original point of bringing this up, the perspective to show you how much stone was removed here. So I was wanting to show this one photo because it really gives you an idea of why it looks to me why it was easy for them, because you wonder to yourself, how much work would it take to take away that much stone to make that flat surface? Now the next photo should give you an idea of how much that is.
Look how much material that is.
It's a lot.
It's wider than this guy's shoulders. I mean, in some cases it's up to like 2 feet.
Yeah.
18 inches at least. Wow. They were removing of that granite. Now they weren't.
This is granite.
This is granite. They weren't just cutting it with a saw.
It's like,
I mean, how do you get a saw in there?
Yeah,
No.
go back to this. Look, notice that there's a radius.
They're grinding it away somehow.
You see how it curves up. You know, it's like there's like you can imagine like just putting a giant belt sander down on this thing.
Right.
You know, and then they're removing this much material. That's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pounds of stone. This is granite. That's a lot. You know, think of
I mean,
trying
just
to pick
the
up
waste.
Yeah.
Like, think of the amount of waste that would create on the ground.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's just going to be piles of it, especially if you're doing an entire pyramid like this.
So is there a evidence of like layers that they had to take it away in layers, or is it just one go?
We don't know,
We
but
don't
there is
know.
no evidence for this. The problem is because there has been occupation and people working on this site for thousands and thousands of years after this pyramid was supposedly built. I mean, it's so hard to figure out who did what.
This is the other thing, you know, just to put this in perspective. This is like fourth dynasty Old Kingdom. Like all these big pyramids are in that area, right? So it's like the beginning of the dynastic period of Egypt. So in the oldest part of their civilization, you know, New Kingdom would have looked at these people and thought of them as ancients, the people who built this stuff. So this is, you know, so you're talking about they start out with these monuments, practically. The other thing to point out here, this is really cool because, you know, now we've looked at all this, you see how big the blocks are, how much stone they're removing, and then you see something like this. We zoom in on that, where they've just,
oh my God,
you know,
holy crap.
So you're setting these giant blocks in, and you're also like, yeah, just make that next one, you know, a 1/4 inch down from the one next to it, because it's easy, like you were saying.
That's the point. Yeah, it's like this.
This makes it look easy.
At least whatever method that it seems like the method they used to do this, just doing stuff like this was easy. I can't help but think, I mean, people always want to know, you know, was this a geopolymer? Was this whatever? Was there some way? To me, it looks like grinding. Like that, if they had something connected to that stone that they were laying down, the one that they're putting on there, that they could vibrate that stone. It would eat away both faces, all 3 faces that the stone is going up against, including its own, and basically make the mating faces perfectly match each other.
Yeah, so let me back up here, and
That's what I wondered.
We can talk about that a little bit because there's evidence here, and then there's something in Peru we can look at about that as well. So let me go to this slide. This one here. So see the blocks at the top here. This is what we're looking at. These would have been sitting up against each other when before the destruction and all the quarrying happened.
Right.
So this face of this block sat against that one. Probably this face sat up against here. I can probably zoom in a bit. Now what's interesting, it's hard to tell with this picture, but these faces aren't flat. They're curved. They have these very slight curves, like the side of that block does something like this. And then the block that it matches has the matching slight curves.
Wow.
Yeah, it's hard. So let me
So
let me switch over to
that's the
some
point.
of the
If you
Peru
take
stuff.
2 stones, they can have whatever face, and you start grinding them together. Eventually, their faces are going to match. They won't be
Yeah.
flat; they'll be curved, but the contours of that curve will match each other. That's why I'm like, to me, I'm not saying that they ground the stones together, but that's what it would look like.
Yeah.
So these were sent to us.
How the fuck did they do that?
I have no idea.
These were sent to us by one of the people that listens to our show. He's been to Peru, and he took these pictures specifically. So you can see, it's tough to tell, but you're basically, there's a big block here and a big block here, and you can see that the inside face of this block, the corner goes out on the top here and goes in on the bottom, and there's a matching face, a complex curve of the block next to it.
It's almost like the face
twisted.
has a twist in it on both sides that match.
Here's another picture of the same area. You can see that this interior face of this block has a twist, and it matches the twist of this block and the one it's sitting into at the bottom.
I don't know how to explain that.
It's
the only thing that I can think of is that they're being ground together. I don't know any other way to make that happen unless you had a computer controlling the device that was cutting the stones and making each one exact. But if you had a computer that was cutting them exact, why would you leave the bulk of material on the front to be flattened later? Why not just cut it exact? If you know what I'm saying? If you were so good at laying these stones that you weren't worried about it.
Right.
That's the other thing that's interesting about leaving all the extra material in the front is you can also look at it as a protective layer.
Yeah.
You know that your final finished product is going to have this glossy, polished surface that's completely flat. You want that protected by multiple layers of stone during the construction process, not layers, multiple inches of stone. So you drop a block against it, it hits it, right?
Yeah, and if a block was dropped near the top of the pyramid and it had tumbled down, I mean, it's going to do a lot of damage.
Yeah.
The very last thing you'd want to do is basically just cut down the edge of it.
Right, so just like painting the inside, you start at the top and you paint your way down.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the last thing you do, right? So it's the finishing work. And a lot of times these places look like it's the finishing work that didn't get completed. And that's why you see things like nubs, because the nubs would be gone once it's finished.
Right. Whoa, man.
Yeah.
Now, when you guys are walking around those pyramids, is it just like some of the pictures that Ben shows of those massive circular saw cuts in these things? Are those just laying there for everyone to see, like in the open?
Yes.
Yeah. They're all over the place.
Yeah.
And you can tell there's multiple different types of saws, and you can kind of tell the differences between them. Like, you can see the leading cutting edge, and if that, like, let's say there's a stone that's broken in half, but it has a saw mark on one side. If the leading edge is concave, in other words, going in, then it's got to be some kind of circular saw or something like that, or at least a curved blade. If the leading edge is convex, in other words, it's coming out at you, then it's a rope saw or some kind of, right? Because rope saw would never have a concave edge to it, so you can kind of tell. Plus, a rope saw can twist and make all these interesting curves as it goes down, and you can see that in many cases.
Rope saw, chainsaw. We went to, is that what they called it? A chain?
It's like a cable saw or something like that.
We visited a quarry, a marble quarry in Vermont, and they showed us some of their quarrying techniques. Like the old style where they were drilling and using and blasting.
Do multiple drill holes next to each other.
And then blast it out to get the block, right? And then now they have this new thing where they drill one long hole and then they run a chain through it, basically, or a cable, pull it back around, and
it's
then
a cable studded with diamond, synthetic diamond.
Diamond surface, and then they just have this machine that sits at the end and spins and just runs that cable through and just cuts this beautiful face through that, through that marble, and it will leave these interesting warped, complex surfaces as because the cable just kind of does what it wants to do, right? It's basically flat, but it's got this very slight, just like we see on these blocks in some cases, like they cut it with some kind of cable.
Yeah, so it's possible that they cut the blocks in the quarry with something like that and said these two go together, but you can't do it on both sides, top and bottom.
You can't do it with the whole block. Yeah.
So it has to have been something else.
Another possibility we've talked about, and this is, some of this stuff gets way out there, but is it like Kyle was saying, what is it, like a lapping? Is that what it's called when you're rubbing the?
Yeah, probably.
I think it's lapping. So one of the, you had Chris Dunn in here, and he talked about, these AAA granite surfaces that they have where they use this flat plate to check other flat stuff for manufacturing, and it's kept in a climate-controlled, humidity-controlled room. you know, because that way it never changes. If
Right.
it gets a little warmer, it'll shift a slight bit, and you don't want that because these are very precise things. You make those by basically rubbing 2 granite surfaces together and then add a third one. And as you do that, when you have 3 surfaces you're rubbing together back and forth, you end up with this beautifully flat surface. But if it's just 2, just rubbing 2 of them together, they can become very smooth, but they may have some kind of contour, but they'll match because you've been rubbing them against each other. So is it possible that some of these stones are basically like you put them in there and you get a vibration going and it just works its way into the other stone until you've got the surfaces all matching, and then you've set
You get it roughly square, and then when you put it in there, it matches. You can make them all the faces match and mate all the way across. Because like some of the casing stones we were looking at, they may be 3 feet tall and 8 feet wide or something, but they also go back in towards the body of the pyramid, like 4 feet or something, or more, in some cases.
Or maybe they weren't perfectly fitting together originally when they built it, and after using them for whatever their purpose was, they all vibrated, and then it just they all sort of melded together. Well, one of the things Chris was showing me,
you can see how deep they are here. This is how this is the depth of the casing stones.
One argument I would make against that: let's say that you had 1 inch that it would vibrate down, because if they're not clear, if they're not perfectly mated, there's gaps and stuff like that in the first course and the second course and third and fourth and all the way to the top. Then they all vibrate together and move down. The top layer is going to have moved many feet down once you take up for all the gaps that were in all the courses going all the way up. Plus they would have to come together side to side. So it looks like they were doing this
you have to do it individually
as they were doing it, as they were building it.
The other thing that's great about this is that it you pointed out as soon as we pulled it up about how similar it is to Peru stuff, right? The nubs and everything. Also, Peru is, some of those walls there are famous for being, all the blocks are different shapes, sizes. You'll have tiny ones next to enormous ones, and they're fitted. Because they're building a pyramid here, they are doing it in regular layers. Courses is what these are called. But you can tell that each individual block is very different from the ones it's next to. Like these 2 are narrow. This one's got a serious angle to it. This one matches the angle but then straightens it out here. This one's kind of square. Some of these are really long. They're, in other words, every block is completely different from every other block. So it has the same sort of non-homogeneous style as Peru, except that because it's done in courses like this, they have regular layers. And then let's go around to the side. We can see this other flattened surface here. This is around the east side of the pyramid. There's another flattened face there.
Oh, wow, and the angle.
Yeah, it got this beautiful sort of reverse keystone in there.
What is that?
That's really strange.
Is that the only one you saw like that?
Yeah.
It's like a trapezoid.
Yeah, if it was flipped over, it would be like a keystone for an arch. But it's it's like upside down for some reason. But yeah, so there's this flat surface, and the archaeologists have come in and cleared this area out because there's a sort of exterior temple in this area. So they dug all this stuff out and removed all the rubble.
It's possible that thing is a door.
It could be a door. Is it an entrance?
Right.
Doors back then were really hardcore.
Doors were fucking crazy back in the day.
Yeah, it is a really strange.
That is wild.
So we kind of showed you this. The pyramid itself has this angle, 51 degrees.
Yep.
Yeah, and then so they built it out of the limestone courses. Then you start stacking the granite facing stones on it, and they're sort of puffy or whatever. Then you set up survey equipment, and you figure out where your finished flat face will be. This line here. And then you flatten those, first 2 or 3 courses there like this. Then you can use that flat surface to continue facing the pyramid all the way up, knowing you don't have any you won't have any holes in your stone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that's the idea. The diagrams can help sort of.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And then when you're done, if you have time, which these people didn't, you flatten the whole thing, and then you have this beautiful flat granite face.
What is your guys' wildest fucking out there theory of what the pyramids were?
I think part of our thing is like we have no idea.
Yeah.
I mean, we've gone through
Sometimes
so many...
I think that's the wildest thing that we say, because people are like, what do you think it is? And we're like, we don't know. And then people are like, what?
Yeah.
You don't have any idea? Right?
It's just like...
What's
you
your
look at-
favorite theory?
Here's what I will say about it. It's hard to believe that a society would support a system that required that immense amount of labor and planning and engineering, all that, for no other reason than to bury like one tyrant.
100%.
Yeah.
So the question I ask is, what did it provide the civilization or the society of people that agreed to do this? Now, people make the argument, that was they just had slaves and they just made them do whatever they wanted. It's hard to imagine that you could make that work. I don't know. I just think that it had to benefit the society in some way. So I do like Chris Dunn's
the power
idea.
plant idea is cool, because it's like it benefits everyone.
It benefits everyone. Everyone agrees, like, yes, we should take on this monumental task, right? Because that it's going to benefit society. So it wouldn't surprise me if we found out in some way that it did have a function. And I
think it's really hard to ignore the reverse engineering that Chris has done on it, and the ideas he's come up with, and he's even remodeled some of like the shafts and stuff like that with the chemicals and stuff. He's recreated that to prove that those would have worked in that way.
That's the other thing is there's something that, like Yusuf would talk about, the pyramid. Well, it's just part of the pyramid complex. And you get to see this if you go on these tours with Ben and Yusuf. Around these pyramids, there will be other things in the area, which are like granite stones in the pavement, deep under the paving tiles, because the paving around the pyramid is actually gigantic limestone tiles, as big as this table, 4 times as big as this table in some places. Underneath
One
those,
tile the size of this room. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Underneath those are some granite stones that have channels cut into them, like a channel like this that water would flow through or whatever, and they go into or from the pyramid, and so it looks like there's this whole system of like channels that had some liquid possibly moving through them, and bowl-shaped stones cut with these tiles over top of them. So something was going on under the floor around the whole pyramid area. Then there's the basalt tiles that show up at various pyramid sites. So it seems like there's a design that has multiple things outside the pyramid that are always around it that also suggests some kind of function. And, people have looked at the possibility of
it's like
chemical
chemistry,
processing.
metallurgy, like...
It wouldn't surprise me if it would ultimately be found out someday to be something like that.
Yeah.
It's crazy to me that some fucking billionaire hasn't just paid a bunch of money to have it reverse engineered and recreated to see if they could do it.
Yeah. I mean, bro, if I had $1 billion,
I mean, think about it. You could
I'd
buy
buy a pyramid in my yard.
You could reverse engineer or try to recreate the pyramid into a functioning thing. At least try to do it for less than you could buy Twitter for.
Wow.
It would cost less money.
You're right.
Wouldn't it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. That's the question. Like, would it actually cost less money than Twitter did? We don't know how expensive. You would need to say, you'd need to get a team of people, engineers and people, and be like, price this out for me.
I think Chris said it would be around $1 billion.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think he said that on the podcast.
Listen, billionaires,
does NASA really
our
own
area of
the
the country is a great place to build a pyramid.
Yeah, we have land if you would like to build a pyramid.
There's limestone there. There's granite. There's red granite nearby in a giant batholith.
Yep.
So come on down to the Texas Hill Country.
Yeah. That's what Chris was saying. If you wanted to rebuild the pyramids, you'd do it. There's a place in Texas that you would do it.
Yeah.
There's a place in Texas that has more of these. What are they called? Those lights that come out of the ground.
Marfa,
Texas.
Texas.
Marfa, Texas. That's what it was.
Yeah, he was talking about building it near the Earth energies. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
You could build it out in that plane.
That's his newest theory, the Tesla connection. His newest theory on it is that there was some sort of a jackhammer or device in the subterranean chamber that would like pound the ground and create seismic vibrations in the igneous rock beneath the pyramid that would create electron flow.
Oh, piezoelectric flow.
Yeah, up through the base of the pyramid, because it's 14 acres, I think it is, the full
between
base.
13 and 14 acres.
Between 13 and 14 acres, and that would capture all that electron flow up through the bottom chamber, through the grand gallery, into the main chamber, and then around the edges there's these pits where they would pour chemicals that would somehow turn into liquid hydrogen that would then come down the shafts, and that would somehow create some sort of chemical reaction in the queen's chamber, going up through the king's chamber. I can't remember it perfectly, but
and this is where, and then microwaves are being run through.
The microwaves, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and then he thought
making
there was
a maser or something like that,
yes,
right? Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's like a power plant idea that is it's like really fascinating, and it also points to an almost completely different like line of thought in terms of generating power than we have in our modern times. We have we basically let's heat something up. Let's heat up water, turn it into steam, make the steam spin something, and then we can run magnets on the spinning thing and get electricity.
Right.
This is a completely different mindset, which is really interesting.
This would have been free energy, right? Because he says there was a dome that was constructed around the pyramid.
Well, you'd have to build.
You need
$1 billion,
so it's not free.
right. No, but what I mean by it is that the pyramids. His theory is that the pyramids would have put out whatever energy they created in his hypothesis would have created this free energy that you could just get out of the air.
Yeah. Oh yes. Yeah. Like thinking of Tesla's wireless transmission.
Exactly.
Of power. Yeah.
Exactly. Like his tower. What's his tower called?
Wardenclyffe Tower.
Wardenclyffe Tower. Yeah.
Yeah. So he was talking about actually turning a layer of the atmosphere into ionizing a layer of the atmosphere into a very good conductor. And then if you attach that to a source of electricity, then you can just plug into it anywhere else on the planet and draw power from it. Now that would put load on the source,
but also that the source might possibly become the sun.
It could
right?
be, yes, because the sun is dumping an enormous amount of energy into the atmosphere all the time. So it could become a sort of free energy-ish thing. It's like the kind of thing
you'd
where
have to build a tower anywhere you wanted to grab it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the other two pyramids, he says that those could have been like backups, like backup generators or something.
Backup generators or test sites or who knows.
Right.
Yeah. I love those kinds of ideas. And the great thing about that is it's just like, let's do that. But the idea that they were tombs is just, no bodies were found, there's no writing.
Right.
We've been in tombs in Egypt. They're full of beautiful artwork and writing. I mean, just covered. Every wall and the ceiling tells you a story. There's stars. It was painted.
The tunnels are big enough for like a procession of people to carry the body in, a box or whatever, all the way down to the bottom, and then
there's
lay
traps.
it in the box. Yeah, there's big traps.
Yeah, pit traps with enormous stone doors on the other side. It's that you can tell it's a tomb, and then you get in the pyramid, and it's more like walking around in a machine.
Right. Yeah, he talks about that NASA engineer Friedman Freund.
This is in the new book?
Freund, yeah, in the new book.
Sorry, Chris, I have the new book. I haven't started reading it yet. Yeah.
It's fucking
I can't wait, yeah.
And Friedman Freund he's known for his study on the earthquake lights. So I guess there's a bunch of places around the world where he found there's the most seismic activity. And it could be days or weeks before an earthquake happens, there's these lights that come up out of the earth and they show up in the atmosphere. They look like UFOs. People have mistaken them for UFOs before. And his sort of theory on this and what he wanted to test is this could be a way to be early detection for earthquakes, to avoid catastrophe during earthquakes. So if you see these earthquake lights coming out and you're in a seismic activity, evacuate, because there's going to be an earthquake. And it was proven. He proved that this actually happened. They did tests, they did studies, and they measured exactly when these earthquake lights would come out of the ground and how much longer after that there would be an earthquake. And it's fascinating.
I do remember you talking with Chris about this on your show.
Yeah. And then so what he did was they took two big pieces of granite, these big long square chunks of granite, and they brought them into a lab, and they put some sort of electronic conductors on the ends of them, and they rubbed them together, and they found out it made electricity when they rubbed these pieces of granite together.
Yeah,
that really fucking blew my mind.
A piezoelectric effect, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Flexing the quartz crystals in the granite is going to generate electrical charge.
Right.
Yeah.
The other thing is you can't really disconnect some of these other structures around, like this.
Yeah. What is this place?
This is the Valley Temple.
This is the same construction style.
It's enormous limestone core blocks. Some of them weigh hundreds of tons. They're heavily eroded, and then they've been cased in granite. And this granite has been it's been finished and flattened, right? Like, so the pyramid we're looking at, a lot of them were sort of still puffy.
Yeah.
These have been finished.
Right.
So inside this, if you pulled these granite stones off, you would have limestone right behind them.
Oh, okay.
I can show you.
Is there pieces where the granite is removed?
Yes. And you can see there's entire areas that used to be cased in granite that are not cased anymore, and the limestone itself has all these squarish divots in it where you could see, like, okay, that was a block, that was the back side of a granite block that was sitting up against it, because it's got this rectangular in the limestone wall. Like, the whole thing is made up of them. The whole limestone wall is made up of these divots of various sizes, so you can tell that it was completely encased in granite. And so it's not only were the granite stones mating faces like perfectly flat, but they were flattened up against the limestone to the point that the whole limestone wall is.
This is what the outside of the temple looks like.
God.
See the square indentations and rectangular marks on there? But of course, this limestone is heavily eroded.
Right, right.
So it's very, and you can see the size of the blocks. Like, this is another place.
That's what kind of erosion is that?
That's the Kintkawas pyramid.
Yeah, this is Kintkawas.
Okay.
That is a pyramid. That's the core of a pyramid. Now that is the bedrock limestone.
So they made the bottom of the pyramid out of the bedrock.
They shaped, because it's actually like what they call a yardang, which is like a protrusion of the bedrock sticking up.
Mm-hmm.
They shaped the bedrock into a pyramid. It has the slopes, and then they cased it. Probably
I've never
in granite.
seen this pyramid before.
It's right there on the Giza Plateau, but it's just so heavily eroded and torn apart.
It looks like. Why does it look like it comes out when it goes up? Like this third layer comes out wider than the second layer below it.
It might be the angle at which I'm taking it, but it's we're kind of standing.
It's just eroded.
Yeah, it's very eroded.
And is that water erosion? Is there any evidence of water erosion on it?
I'm not qualified to answer.
This stuff up here is, very suggestive, the way these vertical erosion marks and this, but I just don't know. This is definitely cut. These are cut. But this is the outside of the Valley Temple. So that's the inside of it is still finished in granite, but somebody has come along and removed all of the granite casing out here. But you can see where they were cut to set against this, these squares are where that granite was cut to set against it.
Yes.
So let me move back to the. But there's some interesting stuff in here when you're looking at this thing. The size of some of these blocks, like this one.
Oh yeah.
On the right here, look at that thing.
Oh wow, look what you did there.
That's magic.
That's visual.
That is magical. I love that. Yeah, I love how that's what you were showing earlier. Some of the blocks they're like wider, and then the block that fits into it fits perfectly into that little 45-degree angle.
Yeah, this guy's like 6'8". So that gives you an example of how tall this block is.
That's Jiao Ming.
This dude is tall. Then this one on the other side is also an enormous block. But what's really interesting is when you get the corners, right? So the corners here. So I've drawn a line down the corner, and you'll notice that giant block goes around the corner.
Oh my God!
No way. That's like just arrogance. That's like you're showing off,
right? Well, it's interesting because and also you'll see this one here. I didn't make any cool graphics for this one, but it's just like, here's your layer, but nope, let's drop it down a couple of inches for this next part, and let's give it a nice curve. Let's not make it square, just let's make it harder on itself. So yeah, you're right. It is kind of a, what is it that, there's a quote from 2001: A Space Odyssey where he was talking about the geometric perfection of the monolith was a kind of mathematical arrogance, is what he said.
Yeah.
And it sort of, I always think of that when you're looking at this stonework, because it's like they're just showing off, dude. So here's another corner in a different part of the, so you can sort of clearly see the corner line, right? And it looks like the corner, like, I don't have good pictures of it here, but when you walk up close and look up, that corner line has a regular radius. Like it was drilled from the top all the way down with a single tool. I don't know if that's how they did it, but
it's a square tool.
Like, no, it's not. It's got a round radius, right? So the blocks come in, and then there's a curve where the corner is. It's not a perfect 90 degree. Like there's a tiny bit of a curve. Like like there was a bit that was used.
Like a 1-inch drill bit. They just went from the top of the wall, just
all the way down,
drilled all the way down to the ground.
So yeah, so that's the corner.
Now I'm not saying that's what they did.
Right.
It's what it looks like.
Right.
It's like the radius is the same.
And there's and it's continuous across the blocks. But also look, this block goes around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
This block goes around the corner.
All three of those go around the corner.
This block goes around the corner, and this one goes around the corner. Here's a picture of another.
Oh my God!
So see that?
What the fuck?
Yeah, and notice the radius of the corner, like it's a continuous line going all the way down. Yeah,
it is a tool.
Yeah,
it's clearly, it looks different than the faces of the wall.
Yeah,
like it
it's
just
got
stands out.
Yeah, it's got a different sort of aspect to it, and then you can
Different
see this one around the corner, that one goes around the corner, this one goes around the corner.
Yeah, it reflects differently than the rest of it. Like
Yes, and all the way up. They go around the corner, and they mostly alternate. And then, this is my favorite, right? Just in case you're in doubt about blocks going around the corner. You got this block.
Oh my God.
It is the fucking corner. So you start to think, how big was this initially? Like this block has to go deep into the wall to the right and deep into the wall to the left and all the way back into the, that's a big damn block right there. And they've just cut one corner of it off to make it the corner of this wall.
That's absurd.
So this is what we came up with. Let's say that you want to have
This is a top-down view.
Yeah, a top-down view. You want to make a chamber like we were just looking at, right?
Yep.
So you build big limestone casing blocks, and you make a big rectangular chamber here with limestone casing blocks. Then you case the interior in irregular granite. Sort of puffy, irregular granite. Now notice when you're looking at these that none of these blocks, these granite blocks, go around any corners.
Right.
Okay. Then you go out onto the top of those granite blocks and you find the place where you want the actual interior wall to be. This is where you want the surfaces of the wall to be. It's inside the stone right now.
Okay.
See? Then you drill 4 holes at the corners of that interior future wall. Then you go in with your magic granite flattening tool, whatever that is, and you remove all that granite. Now you have 4 blocks that go around corners.
Yep. That makes total sense.
Yep.
We know that they were facing the granite. So if you had 6 or 8 inches, we know that they were facing that pyramid at least, 18 inches deep.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're gonna go face it, this is what's gonna happen in an inside corner.
And there's places we can look at later, like the Osirian, where they were in the process of facing the wall, and we can look at that too.
Yeah, the Osirian stuff is nuts.
Yeah. Well, one more thing in the Valley Temple is I'll just show you some of the joins. I'm just putting my fingers up there for reference, but there's a horizontal join and a vertical one here, right here, and here. They're almost invisible.
Yeah.
I mean, look at that. You can barely. The only reason you can see it is because there's like there's erosion and there's slight discontinuities in the crystalline structures, basically.
Right. Otherwise, it would be invisible.
Yeah. So,
it's just so crazy that
this is another one.
Oh my lord.
Yeah. So that's this is an outside corner. And it's also very heavily eroded. It's really interesting how deeply eroded this granite is. And granite is, not a weak stone. How long does it take for it to basically begin to decompose like this?
It is one of the hardest stones, right? It's like one of the top 3 hardest stones.
Yeah, it's a 7, I think, on the Mohs scale. Yeah. 9 being, or is it diamond is a 10 or is it 9? I can't remember. I think it's a 10.
I thought it was a 10.
Yeah. So it's 7. And, we had a geologist on one of the tours with us, and he would look at this he'd stand there looking at this decomposition of the granite, and he's just like, I'm like, how long does this take, Chuck? And he's like, a long time. A long time. He wouldn't commit to a number. He just said a long damn time.
Right. So it's just so wild to me. Like, just try to imagine what those tools would have looked like. And there's zero evidence of any of these tools and no remains from any of these machines that they would have used to do this.
No known. Yeah.
Known.
I would love for there to be, someday somebody finds an unopened tool.
An unopened one.
Chamber.
Well, Chris Dunn talks about you've heard about him, the tuning forks that he mentions.
Yeah, you mean the ones at the base of the staffs? Is that what you're talking about?
He said there was a row of giant tuning forks in the Grand Gallery going up to the King's Chamber.
Oh, the
metal tuning forks, because he shows that they're like the shapes of them. What he hypothesizes they would have looked like whenever the explosion happened in the King's Chamber. It would have been like a electronic explosion, and there's burn marks on the top of the Grand Gallery going all the way up where those tuning forks would have been. And he superimposed a graphic showing what they looked like. And he thinks that somebody stole those tuning. I don't know if maybe there's a theory.
The Helmholtz resonators? Is that what he's talking about?
Maybe.
They're kind of a tuning fork.
There's a conspiracy theory I found out there that somebody found a photo of some of these tuning forks. They're like hidden away somewhere.
Oh, man.
And somebody like stripped them out of there and they're hiding them somewhere.
Yeah, that's believable, because if you have ancient tools and they're made of metals and other valuable things, and then civilization collapses and a long time goes by, and then you have people who are just trying to survive, and they find sort of rusting, degrading remnants of tools, they're going to peel bits of metal off to make knives, spears. They're going to scavenge it. And whatever time doesn't destroy, people will destroy if they can.
Yes.
So there's just going to be nothing left.
But if they used, hypothetically, if they were using diamond cutters to cut this stuff, we would still have the diamonds, like the remnants of the diamond, right?
Well, our diamond cutters are coated in dust.
Yeah, there's an entire desert full of sand.
Yeah, and it's
you try to find a diamond
desert.
in those grains.
We talked about
Oh, I was having fun.
Yeah, you're just sifting sand, hoping that one of those little bits of silica is actually a diamond. It's
Yeah, but wouldn't the structural integrity of the diamond, if it was a blade, wouldn't it still be intact, or would it erode to dust?
Oh, no, we're thinking of dust to start with. So you have if
diamond blades are just coated in diamond dust.
Oh, ours are.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, that's the cheapest kind of diamond to get, is like this dusty bort stuff, right?
You get a metal blade, and you have some way of setting the diamonds into the metal. So as the metal is wearing away, it wears away, and there's a new diamond in there.
Oh,
and
that's
that starts scratching the stone until that one gets worn off, falls out, and then there's more underneath, and you can keep wearing that blade down that's got embedded with diamond. Studded.
I understand. I was picturing like a pure diamond saw blade.
Yeah.
Shows how much I know.
I'd like to have a diamond sword. That would be cool. It would be cool to find.
Holy shit. That would be sick.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what I was thinking of. I don't, the same guy, Chuck, was talking about making, kind of doing this as a test by pouring, I can't remember exactly what he was doing, but pouring some kind of metal that he had put a bunch of diamond into some kind of grinding disc, and you can, he's trying to kind of do these little experiments to say, well, maybe they were doing it this way. And you don't have to have diamond. You just have to have something harder than the stone that's in there, or at least as hard as.
But there's not many options.
There's not a whole lot of options.
Yeah.
No.
What is there besides diamond?
Well, quartz would cut most of granite except the quartz in the granite. That's the problem.
But
right?
it will scratch itself.
It will scratch itself. But the hardest thing in granite is the quartz.
It's just gonna wear through so many bits.
Yeah.
I just don't. They should be everywhere.
Yeah.
This is great because it gives people a real idea of how far away these complexes are.
Yeah, Giza and Menkaure are up there in the north, near the big delta.
Right.
The Osirian is 300 miles south up the Nile, and that's the next place we look at here in this. it's next to the the temple of Seti the First. That's what this is this is the temple. This is above ground.
Okay.
Big, massive, beautiful temple. It's one of the, it's still got its roof on it, which is a lot of the Egyptian, these dynastic temples no longer have the roofing blocks on. So this one does, and it's cool to go in there and just, it's dark and cool, and there's these holes that shine these beams of light down on certain parts that move around during the day. It's an amazing experience to walk around in here, and the carvings are beautiful. But then you get down into, this thing. This is the Osirian. So this is outside the temple, and it's like 30 to 40 feet below ground surface.